Hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Versus, Leader versus Something. Today, it's weird to talk about myself in the third person. Today, we are featuring one of the coolest synths I've owned. It's more than a synth, it's essentially a groove box, but it is an Elektron groove box, which kind of, in my opinion, sets it apart from a lot of other stuff, a lot of other groove boxes and a lot of other synths are kind of in their own. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of companies that do similar, but for me, Elektron's kind of top tier. Maybe there's other ones that are out there doing better I haven't tried yet, but for me, I've got just about everything Elektron's ever made. God, I wish I had the old stuff. I should say I've got everything from the Octatrack up, almost everything. And when this one came out, it was kind of funny because I didn't think I wanted this one. In fact, to go back even further, when the Modal Cycles came out, I was like, what would I want that thing for? It doesn't look cool at all. Turns out the Modal Cycles is one of my most favorite synths of all time. This one probably getting close to second place because this one is as if the Modal Cycles, which is an Elektron product, they're kind of small little plastic, affordable, portable synthesizer, not portable, just regular synthesizer groove box. And it's kind of like that in the Elektron Analog Rhythm, which is their kind of top tier drum machine. They've got two versions of that, the MK1, the MK2. I've got the MK1. It's like the drum machine, the Analog Rhythm, and the motorcycles had a baby. That's what it is, in my opinion. Reason is you have several engines that are either very similar or kind of basically the same as the ones on the motorcycles. You do get a lot more control over them. And then you also have these three slots down here that actually are analog machines pulled directly from the rhythm. Or I should say, I don't know if they're pulled directly. I'm sure they had to do something else. But nonetheless, they are those pretty dang close, if not exactly the same machines. You actually get a fourth analog machine, but that one is only geared towards cymbals. So these three here are kind of interchangeable, essentially drum, kick drum, snare. You can do this really great dual VCO, kind of raw, real grungy sound, analog synthesizer sound. It's got, I think, one or two more. And then, like I said, up here, all these across are the digital machines, which gives you a grand total of 12 tracks. These 4 tracks, if you will, here are built for doing performance effects. Honestly, I never ever use them. I don't really. They're okay, and they, but they just kind of like do beat repeat and a couple other simple things. I almost never use them. I just never use them. I should probably start using them because they are fun. They just never really strike me as useful most of the times for what I'm trying to do. Nonetheless, very capable machine. It's got your kind of traditional Elektron sequencer. This is the batch of the digis, if you will. It's in the digi format, but it's before they came out with the 8-bar sequencer, which is, I wish the Syntakt had 8 bars because I do have the Digitone 2, which has 8 bars, and it is a game changer. So, that said, let's pay attention here to a few more things before I go into actually making some sound, because that's what this is all about. So a few other things I'm going to say is you have these pages here that are for each track. And these pages kind of correlate in general. Like you have filter, that's pretty much going to be a filter page for everything. Amp's going to be the amp page. You get double pages on these that do some more parameters for those. You do get 2 LFOs per sound per track. And then you have the synth page, which is the synth page is usually what's very different and geared towards whatever particular machine that you're using. Machine is kind of a pre-built oscillator, if you will. It's got they give you a limited amount of parameters, enough in my opinion, but limited in the sense that you're not dealing with straight up oscillators. You get these kind of they call them machines, these kind of parameters that help you focus into a certain kind of sound. Let's go over them real quick. So for the analog, we have several kick drums. They all start with BD, just several different ones. I don't have to name them all. Bunch of 5 snares, sorry. You got a rim shot, 2 of those. Then you got a noise utility and an impulse utility. I don't really use those much, but the impulse, I know back in the rhythm days, I remember people showing how they could use that to trigger other stuff, or even trigger the filter itself to give you that kind of sine wave sound. Then you have, you have a couple of synth machines. One is the dual VCO. That's what I was talking about. It's like it's two-wave dual analog waveforms and real just grungy. We'll get to it. SY Raw's kind of a little bit more of a traditional synthesizer sound. SY Chip is, I guess, in a way emulating like the old school chiptunes kind of stuff. What is that? What's the machine they made a long time ago? It was like their first one, the Elektron Station. So kind of like doing that, and you can get some very convincing sounds out of that. So that's just these three here. For this fourth one, you can hear that is a percussion, a cymbal. You get a cymbal classic, a cymbal metallic, cymbal ride, and then two more cymbal classic, CB, which is cowbell, classic cowbell metallic, and then you get the other utility ones. Up here real quick, we're going to go through. We get a bunch. So we do have a bass drum machine, very simple, called BD Modern. I actually like it. I tend to use it more than I actually use the analog because I like keeping these three open for those wicked synth machines. So I tend to use this as my bass drum. That's not a bass drum. Let's see. There it is. Okay, so then we got a snare. Two different snare machines, and then we've got a PC Carbon, which is your percussion. You have a clap machine, clap vintage. CY Alloy is another digital version of the cymbals, and then you get a bunch of these fun things that are, I can't say they're exactly or very even necessarily close to the model cycles, but from my understanding they were ported and then retweaked and rebuilt for the Syntakt. So you get SY Bits. That's another kind of another similar kind of SID station thing going on there. Chord, which is a nice chord machine. We'll go over that. It's got a bunch of different stuff going on there. Like you can basically make just about any chord you can think of. You can change the positions of the notes called inversions, and then you can also dial in. I think it's like up to 128. I think they're PCMs. But they're basically tones captured for the chords. So you'll hear it. SY Tone, simple kind of synthesizer, and then SY Toy, which is kind of this weird, more percussive, I feel like it's better at. We'll go through all these though. And then SY Swarm, which is that kind of swarm sound, which is the idea of, I wouldn't want to call it like overly detuned. You'll hear it. It's just kind of more of like it's built for kind of big swarm sounds, if you will, big ambient textures and stuff. You can do more with it, but that's kind of, in my opinion, its idea. Okay. Cool. All right, so I was going to play a little bit just to give you an idea. This is a song I put up, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago or so. Where's my synth sound? So, you kind of hear there, we got everything going on there. It's not no samples, obviously, but in terms of just synthesized bass groovebox music, you can get just about everything you really need out of this guy, in my opinion. Obviously it's not going to have those crazy granular machines and stuff like that, but in just kind of traditional meets grungy FM meets raw analog, it's kind of all packed in there, which is pretty amazing because it's a tiny little guy. It does get pretty warm. It's a nice hand warmer in the wintertime. Obviously, because it has all those analog machines in there. But one last thing I want to mention before we really get going is the idea that it actually has a separate master channel that you can pick which tracks you want to go into, and you have a little bit of distortion there, but you also have a nice filter. So when it comes to performance, you do get that nice filter sweep stuff going on, and you can actually decide what gets affected by that. So that's a pretty cool thing. Okay. All right, so what I'm thinking is we are just going to go through each track. There are 12 tracks. We'll try to get through. It's already 10 after. I like to go about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. We will start making some sounds. I think I'm going to start with the percussion and the drums. We'll keep it kind of simple just because we're not building a song, and I feel like if you're gonna really dial in drums, you're gonna want to build a song for me. And what I'm starting to think is I might actually do a second stream when I can really get this all dialed in and have more time to get to do like a song building kind of thing, just to kind of show how I work. Maybe get some collaboration there, which I would love for this too. So if anybody out there has any ideas, wants me to do anything with a particular sound, please chime in. I'd love to hear it. All right. All right, let's start with the kick. It's kind of a nice kick already. Oh, that's because it's a song already. Let's go to bank here. Oh, you know what? I actually did start something on here. I'm sorry. You know what? Yeah. We're going to do a little bit different here. I'm going to start with this as kind of my start off sound. And then we'll build some stuff around it. Maybe we'll play a little pattern here just to kind of get things going. It's almost impossible to play an Elektron machine without starting the sequencer because you get so much amazing stuff. I did not mention, I definitely mentioned this in the last Elektron video with the Digidone too, but the sequencer is magical because it has something called parameter locks. Some synthesizers or some groove boxes out there have implemented this in some ways or another, but to me, Elektron has it the best. And the reason is you can essentially control every single one of these parameters on every single page, and even some ones that are on the secondary pages. You basically can per step change all that stuff. You can do other things too, like sound locks, completely change the sound, like a preset patch you've made already, and just drop it into one single step. It's amazing. So anyway, the sequencer is a fundamental component of the Elektron workflow. We will use it eventually here throughout this, but I'm going to try and do my best to focus on just making the sounds. So, where was that sound? Track 8. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to put a little kick on here, just to kind of get it rolling. Let's dial that kick in a little bit because it is boomy and it is not playing well with that low. Actually, you know what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take away a little bit of this guy. I really love this. It's not on every single machine, all the digital ones for sure though, but you do get a secondary bandpass filter that essentially lets you have a high pass filter and a low pass filter combined, and that way it's a little EQ cheat, if you will. If I remember right, you get different filters, that will let you do more kind of tight control of the EQ, but we're not worried about that right now. Okay, we made a little bit of room for the kick. First thing I'm going to do is maybe bring up the sweep just a little bit and the decay down. Tune it down just a little bit. I'm going to go just down one semitone. Boop. Okay. Maybe a little bit of this triangle mod feedback. Here, let's crank it and hear what it sounds like. Be a nice dusty kick. Don't need that much. Just a little bit to kind of brightens it up. Gives a little more harmonic flavor on the top end there. Square modulation kind of gives it more of a pop, like it's in and out. All right. Some machines on here have secondary pages. This one does not. It is a very simple machine. And I'm actually going to roll the filter. I tend to do this with the kicks. It makes sense that they want to give you a kick machine that just packs in those low-end frequencies. But when you go into actually mix, or if you're trying to listen to it, I'm getting better about it. You might watch some of my old videos and be like, geez, dude, that kick is just booming. It was hard for me to get to that point to figuring out how to control it. And honestly, what I had to realize is that I had to cut some of those low frequencies out entirely. It was hard because I kept thinking they just sound so good, but then you go and listen onto like TV speakers or an iPhone or even in some car speakers, and it just sounded horrible. It just sounded good in my studio. So Anyway, I'm better about cutting some off. I usually try to do at least up to like 35 hertz, just because there's really no hearing there for us. It's just the feeling in the boom. All right, a little bit. So kept the kick simple. I'm just gonna be layering heavy. We're obviously not building a song, so you're gonna get the whole drums, the whole everything's going here. All right, let's just do a nice little. Oops. Yes. No. What am I doing? Oh, functionals. Okay. Another cool thing about this is you can change the scale of the sequencer, so you can actually do 16 notes, 8 notes, quarter notes, and so on, increasing the length or shrinking it if you want double time. But the other really amazing thing is each one of these tracks can have its own length, which is awesome. I actually just changed that because just default it is set up so that they all follow the same size, but you can hit page, function yes, and that'll then let you have each track its own pattern, length, and scale. So, kind of a decent snare already, but it wouldn't be very fun to just use the standard snare because we're here to make some custom patches. Let's try just a little extra decay. Let's see what we get with the sweep. Can hear that kind of almost, I don't know, chirp? I don't know what you call that. Not crazy about too much of that. This is inharmonicity. I don't know what that means exactly. Except maybe it's adding some noisy harmonics on the top. It's not kind of accentuating the parts that I don't like of the sweep sound, so I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there. Alright, next we have frequency complexity. That's probably going in combination with the inharmonicity. Yeah, okay. Let's keep that up there. It's adding some very nice noise. I like that. This is a modulation envelope. Not really hearing much action on that one. I'll have to look up the manual and see exactly what that does. It's probably based on something different. Let's see, we got 2 synth pages. No, we don't. We have, oh, no, we have one. Just a little overdrive to fatten that up. All right. So now that I have that sound where I like it, this is something I like to do with snares. Any percussion really, is I like to kind of get either to the extreme or in the middle of where I want the sound to be, and then I can use the envelopes and the LFOs to kind of give it just a little bit of variation, because sometimes a straight, absolutely electronic, robotic sounding drum beat is what you're going for. That's honestly rarely what I go for. I usually prefer something that's a more organic sound, so I try to think in some ways like a drummer, and also try to program in a way that might sound a little more human. And how I do that is by, like I mentioned before, setting the parameters in just a way that I like, but giving room for movement within those parameters. So, for example, if I like, let's see where our decay is at. It's at 44. If I were to crank this all the way down, that's set. If I come over to the amp, I can't really affect that a whole lot, like a little bit, but it's not giving me much room to really grow that synth and shrink it down, or that snare and shrink it down. It's basically kind of stuck. So what I like to do is find that we're at 44. There's quite a bit of decay on the snare. Not too much, but a decent amount. Here's way too much. Okay. You might use that sometimes. Why not, right? There's no rules. That right there is kind of the most I think I'd want of the snare. So that's at 92, and I was down at 44. Let's actually go to 55. So kind of like low 90s down to probably 30s is the range I'm going to play with. I'm going to keep it small in the automation, but that gives me room to then open up the decay when I want to build up, say, coming to the next pattern. You kind of want that snare to sound like it's getting hit harder. Okay, so let's get a little variation on that snare. We do have 2 LFOs, so we can have a little fun. I'm going to put the, actually let's go back into the amp, make sure we got this set up right. Okay, for the amp envelope, you can actually change, I believe. Yes, you can. So you have two different versions you can use. You can use a traditional ADSR, which is what you're going to find on pretty much every synth, or a lot of synths. Or you can go to a more percussion drum-based envelope, which is called the AHD, which is attack, hold, decay. The idea then is that you basically get, it sounds like you get less control, but it works better for what you're trying to do in terms of the sound, for a percussion sound. So for example, right here, if I crank the hold all the way down, you can hear there's not much time that snare is wide open and hanging. It's basically immediately coming in and then immediately starting to decay. You can crank that decay, which is kind of nice, but it doesn't give that oomph. So watch this. If I bring the decay back, bring the hold, maybe a little more decay. Now you get a full pump of that snare, boom, like that. So that's what I love about the AHD envelope. It's perfect for drums. Still, experiment, but I tend to find myself finding that to be the best one for making nice punchy drum sounds. All right, let's do a little bit of LFO. We're gonna attach the first LFO to the decay stage of that AHD envelope. So if I give it so this is really cool. This is something that I don't see a lot on LFOs, and honestly, I wish everybody did this. You have more than just a free and a triggered LFO. Triggered LFO means every time that you have a entry on the sequencer, that LFO is going to start from the beginning wherever you set it. You have phase where you can kind of decide. Let's say you have a sine wave, right, and it's going like this. Every time you hit a new entry on the sequencer, it's going to start at 0 and do the whole sine wave. You can have something else happen, which is free, which means it's just doing its thing no matter when you trigger it. So that's going to basically make it sound a little different every time, where a triggered LFO is going to sound the same every time. Then you get, well, I'll show you this one first. You get 1.5, which is a single LFO cycle, which is kind of more like an envelope, but it gives you that one process. So if you have a real slow LFO, you can get a full process through it, up, down, back to neutral, or you can do half, which is just a positive one. So you're just going to whoop like this. You can do a negative polarity and get just the down, but it's essentially half of a full cycle of a waveform. So the last one, which is my favorite, is hold. This one it's a combination of trigger and free, and it's brilliant. And the reason it's brilliant is because it allows you to take a waveform. You have your synth moving through it, but every time you hit, every time you trigger that LFO by an entry on the sequencer, it stops the LFO and just keeps that parameter there. So say you're at the highest point of the sine wave and you hit it, boom, it's wide open. Then you come back down, hits it there, it stays for the entirety of the song or the sound until it gets to the next trig. That's what they call these. We call them trig. We call them entry on the sequencer. That sounds a little silly. Very much called the trig in the Elektron workflow. So what I love about this is, if you think about a real drum, you're playing it, you're a human, you're not hitting it consistently every single time with the same amount of velocity. You got a little bit of humanized velocity in there, a little bit of real variation. But what doesn't happen when you hit that snare, it doesn't act like an LFO. It's not going to hit it and then close a little bit and go open. No, it's just going to hit and it's going to decay to the strength that you hit it. So to get a more natural response from an LFO on a drum machine, you use that and it gives you that kind of little bit of variation. Let's just do the depth. Say about, we'll do a little more so you can hear it. Do 7. You kind of hear it decaying just a little bit longer and then a little bit less. It's kind of going back and forth. So here's the next part we're going to do. Instead of using a sine wave, I hope, yeah, you can see that pretty good. Nice. I'm going to go all the way over to a random, and I'm going to bring this depth down to just a little bit. Let's say 3. Now, to me, it kind of doesn't really matter the speed so much, because the hold, this hold trigger point, is going to keep wherever it is anyways. And on a random, it's random anyways, so it doesn't really matter, so to speak. So I'm going to do it at 16 just because I'm used to doing that, and because in case I want to switch to a different kind of LFO, it'll kind of stay in the 16, you know, step bar right now. But I feel like it's very subtle, but I feel like that's pretty decent for the snare. Actually going to back it up just a little bit. Okay, kind of getting tired of hearing that loop over and over. All right, let's make some hi-hats. Gives us a clap, but I'm not going to do a clap. I'm going to hold function, hit the sign button, which gives me the secondary function of machine. I am going to choose. I will say that as much as this thing is packed, it's kind of limited in the variations of each type of machine. So, for example, if you have the rhythm, you get quite a few. I think it's like at least 3 different hi-hats, maybe 4. It's been a while since I busted that thing out. I need to do that. You get, I think, at least 4 or 5 snares. You get a bunch of kicks, which you do get a bunch of kicks on this one too. But you get more variation. Makes sense. It's a dedicated drum machine. Costs significantly more. So, you know, it comes with the price, I guess, in a way, and the size. But we're gonna do PC carbon. Maybe I don't want PC carbon. What do I usually use for this? Let's see. What are they using here? You can hear that's their hi-hat. Oh, CY alloy. I guess I didn't see it over there. Oh, there it is. Okay. Kind of like a metallic. Yeah. Okay. Let's turn the page down to 1 bar. Okay, so first thing I like to do is I like to bring the pan over. I tend to like a nice kind of spaced out drum set. Snare usually going to hit in the center. If I get a crowded center with like big bass frequency stuff, I might kick the snare off just to like 1 to maybe 5 degrees, if you will, off the center, just to kind of give a little space. But generally I keep the kick always in the center, pretty much always. I can't imagine not you doing that, because that would be weird on your ears. And the bass in the center, and then the snare usually in the center, but like I said, it's slightly off. But the hats I usually pan to one side. If you think about it, you're looking at a drum set, you know, the drummer's not playing every drum right in front of himself. He's reaching over playing the hats, he's playing the toms over here. So, you know, I like to kind of mimic that. I feel like it gives a more even response to the drums, and also makes room for other things to kind of fill the space. So that said, let's put these over just a little bit to the right. We're going to go 37. A little too far for right now. I might spread it out as I fill in the panorama. Let's go 27. Okay. Let's go to the sound page, the synth page. Let's see what we got. I'm going to just go ahead and turn off everything. You can just hear the hi-hats. Got shimmer. Let's hear what shimmer does. Right now it just sounds like it's affecting the tone, but we don't have the decay open yet. So we obviously aren't going to just do this, but it's basically, there's like 2 frequencies going on, and the shimmer kind of plays with the second. It seems like the fundamental stays there. Punch is kind of like a nice little compression. Basically just gives you kind of similar to what we did with the hold and the decay. Before they had the punch parameter on these guys, like the old rhythm and stuff like that, I would do something with an LFO to get that kind of punch to it. So it's nice that it's there now. You can hear even kind of like a very decayed hi-hat. Turn that punch on, and you get that nice kind of like actually hitting the hi-hat kind of nice and hard. I'm gonna leave it on. I'm not gonna lie, hi-hats are the hardest thing for me to be happy with because, you know, it's really hard to dial in the pitch. It's hard to dial in the overall tone. That is one thing, again, about the rhythm that's really nice. It does have sample playback, so you can mesh, or you can meld, or you can mix, I should say, the analog machine and a sample, and oh, dude, you can just get the perfect hi-hat on that thing. I love it. All right. Okay. I'm going to come over here. Before we move on, I'm going to go and actually go to the filter, the bandpass filter, and cut some of those low frequencies out real. I've personally found hi-hats, I like them to be almost entirely in the high frequency range. They sound a little too clangy when they have too much low, and then you start competing with all the others kind of middle and lower frequencies. So let's go there. Turn the tune up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to open the decay. Like I mentioned with the snare, I want to have that there for when I want to build up, but I'm going to bring it back down in a moment with the amp envelope. So let's hear what radio does. So radio is just kind of adding, kind of folding frequencies in there and giving you almost, wouldn't call it a noise thing going on, but you can clearly hear. I was not liking that for a bit, but then I feel like I just magically landed on that. Okay, modulation clearly is playing with that radio. Probably the speed of the noise, kind of, you know, oscillator fluctuations and stuff. Okay. Modulation envelope's going to give us a little bit of, like, whatever that setting is high, it's going to dip it down each time so that you can hear. Very just straightforward. Just gives you, kind of opens up the noise a little bit. Adds more flavor to it and depth. Just a hair overdrive. It really just nice to have those harmonics on there from the overdrive. Okay. Not quite there yet. But like I said earlier, I'm not going to really focus too much on the drums just because, you know, we're not building a song. We're just going to build a pattern. So let's go to the amp envelope, okay? We do have the AHD, the attack, hold, decay. Let's just like get rid of it altogether. Okay, it almost sounds like a little finger snap. Okay, this is just using decay, no hold at all. So let's hear we get a little bit of hold. No, hold's not a good thing. Okay, that's not bad. We're going to do something similar like we did with the snare. We're going to add a little variation. I feel like you have to have some variation on the, I shouldn't say have to. It's, I really like it. My ears get tired of hearing perfectly repetitive stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's some great acid tunes out there and some other stuff that is just, you know, total machine gun sounding and computer sounding, and it works. Not usually what I'm going for, though. Where's my attack? There it is. I'm going to do the amp decay. We are going to dial it in first here. Let's do 16. We're going to do the noise, the random again. And we're going to do hold. And we're going to actually go negative on this. Here, let's hear what it sounds like. Extreme. As a drunk drummer right there, he cannot even hit the hats just right, not even close. So let's get something more pleasing. Very nice. And now here real quick, I'm going to show, this is the beauty of the parameter locks. So I do have this LFO kind of, you know, throwing some random kind of stuff in there. And you can still keep that LFO. You can actually affect everything. So the point what I'm trying to say is here is I want to set it somewhere where I can have maybe the hats open up just a little bit. every time. I can have it happen exactly the same way every time by p-locking the LFO parameter, locking the LFO depth completely off. Or I can do, let's hear where I want it. Right there. Okay, so watch this. Let's just hear what it sounds like if I increase the amp decay. So, like I mentioned here, this still has the LFO trigger. So even though I opened up that decay quite a bit, it's actually going to work with the LFO and open up the decay, but then also vary it a little bit. I can come here and turn it off entirely by just, you can see parameter locking it to 0. But then it's like every single time that's going to sound exactly the same. I don't want that. I'm going to actually go with like a little bit of positive so it gets a little bit more open occasionally. Just a little bit. Let's go to 1.5. Cool. All right. Simple, but it's working. All right. One other thing I'm going to do with the hi-hats real quick, just because this is important. Another thing that kind of humanizes things is to mess with the velocity, which you can change per trick. You can also you can do all sorts of stuff. I don't know if you can actually use an LFO for the velocity. Let's see. No, but one thing you can do that's cool is LFO2 can affect LFO1. It doesn't go the other way. You can see it goes right back. Yeah. But LFO2 can affect LFO1. So if you want even more variation, you can now have, you have everything set up to be a little bit of variation in terms of the LFO1. You can have LF2 come in there and be like, hey, I want to vary you a little bit. And then just kind of cascades, and you can get really a whole lot of variation, which is really fun. But at the same time, it might be better to keep the LFO for something else. For right now, we're just going to leave it be because I don't feel like I need it. But I do want to play with the velocity. So you can hear right now, let's get rid of everything. Everything's, just even though it has a little bit of variation on the decay, and then they have that one really open decay hit, they're all just kind of banging away at, I think it's probably going to be 100 velocity. Yep, that's the standard. So in here, we can mess around a little bit. So generally, when you have a drummer, they're going to play, and they're going to usually accentuate the downbeats. So 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And usually they're going to play the off beats a little lighter. So I'm going to bring the velocity down on those to 65. I'm actually going to do that too for the open hat we have here, but not as much. I'm going to do 90 on that. You can hear subtle because it's just a little bit more variation. All right, let's bring this all back in. Okay, so far we're pretty clean. Nothing crazy going on. Pretty straightforward. Let's move away from the percussion. Let's move into some actual sounds, some synth sounds. I'm going to start over here in my analog section. And the very first one I'm going to bring out is my favorite. And that is the dual VCO. This came out on the Rhythm. That was a huge addition. If I remember right, the pitch is like a little wonky on that. I feel like you couldn't track the pitch as well, but they dialed it in really good on here, and it sounds fantastic. So let's hear what it sounds like. Oh, I'm playing too high. That's why. Okay, that's a straight up default patch, already super beefy. But what are we going to do? I feel like we've already got a relative bass patch here. Let's double down on that bass, man. Let's get some more bass going. We'll do it real low. Let's just have fun with the sound first, and then we'll figure out how to do it. So we do have a detune feature here. I'm going to turn the decay down on this. It's just going to blast us the whole time. I'm actually going to go and change this to a, whoops, where is it? There it is. From the AHD to the ADSR, the traditional attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. Okay, we're in D minor probably. Yeah. All right. Let's mess around. Okay, let's hear what the D tune sounds like. So this is, we have both, right here you can see the balance. That is your mixer for the two oscillators. And the mix is even right now, so we're going to hear the D tune pretty strong. I mean, it's massive already, and we're barely scratching the surface here. Alright, so now they're exactly the same, or as much as two analog oscillators can be the same. Still here, there's a whole lot of phasing and stuff going on there, just because, you know, analog oscillators, they kind of have their own thing going on. This is interesting. I feel like it's so hard to see. But those are your two waveforms. Yeah, you do have the, okay. Let's see if I can, nope, I can't point to it, but like right there. These, very small to see, but you can see you're changing, that's kind of a sawtooth there, coming over, I'm sorry, not a sawtooth, sawtooth, sorry, triangle on the bottom one, and you start going into sine wave territory. So this is two sines. And then we can switch it. When you have this, those little tiny squares right there, that means that they are syncing every time, so that they're starting from the very beginning at the very same spot, similar to what we talked about with the trig LFO. So you should be able to have one. Oh, I guess you can't do that. It's kind of a bummer. So they're either triggering together or they're sort of free roaming. Hear how it sounds different every time I play it. Now it sounds the same. So let's go with I want to see if I can get a sawtooth and a square. Oh, I don't have a square, I guess. Let's do sawtooth and triangle. Oh man, my ears are buzzing from that. All right, let's not do. Let's change that a little bit. I don't know. All right, let's try this, because I'm going to put some filter on here. I'm going to go down another octave. Oh, sweet. So back to here. This is a pretty simple machine too. We only get one page. Bend is going to be, I think, sort of like a portamento. Well, yeah. Oh, portamento. This is literally just a bend. It's kind of nice when you want that real accentuated burst on the beginning of that sound, like. Okay, that's cool. Let's. So we do have like kind of a sort of an envelope right here on these two, where you can define if one's going to end. Maybe the other one stays. That is monstrous. All right. Okay, mess with the filter. I really like the filters on the Elektron machines. I think they did a really good job. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised. This, I believe, is an analog filter on the analog. Yeah, it should be. And then you obviously have digital ones on these guys. So here we go. Can never stop getting enough of a beautiful filter sweep. Resonance. In case you're not familiar, resonance basically goes right where the cutoff frequency is and starts boosting that frequency, and you get this kind of feedback in there, which causes that real bright too much, you get that ringing, and then you can literally make it oscillate, which is a cool trick to get a sine wave patch, but we'll deal with that some other time. It's very Oberheim sounding right there. That's way too much for this sound right now. Let's bring it down. Okay, that is, I probably should have started there because I feel like that takes up so much. Yeah, we're going to shift gears. We're going to make a not awful sounding, no, I said that, just intense sounding track. So let's do this. I'm going to take this pattern, copy it, bring it over to bank 12, paste it. Get rid of this guy and clear that. I'll keep the track there for now since I have not using it yet. Okay, let's bring that filter down quicker. Real raw up there. All right, let's see if we can do this. 3, 4. Probably should have left that last one up there. I'm gonna quantize this just to save myself some time right now. Drive up nice. Fatten that up even more. Come over to, oh, see, here's the dang thing. You don't get two filters. You don't get that bandpass filter on the analog machines, which can be troublesome because then you basically run out of room down there with all this big, massive sounds. We'll see what we can do. So what I'm doing here on the kick to kind of match the intensity of that dual VCO, I brought the decay up, brought the overdrive up. Let's see, maybe we can add a little more of the noise. So this guy, the triangle. Gonna come back down here and bring this guy just down a little bit with the level knob. Okay, let's revisit our snare. It's not that bad actually, but I'm gonna bring up overdrive. Maybe let that decay ring out just a little bit more. And bring down the pitch just a little bit. Okay. Let's mess around a little bit with the sequencer. Man, I'm getting into making a song game, but we just we can make a pattern. That's what I'm gonna do. Another fun element of the sequencers, you get something called retrigs. So just to show you what that sounds like, you can hear I have a trig going right here. I hit the trig button, turn it on. A little flam kind of thing. thing going on there. I can change that to make it last a little longer. Okay. This other one right here, velocity. So if I turn this up, we'll go up to like 60, no, 55. It's actually increasing the velocity as you go through the retricks. Kind of doesn't sound that great here right now because it's probably maxing out. We're at 100 right now. There's only room to go to 127. I have it set to 50, so it's hitting 127 and then it's just capping out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back here and we're gonna P-lock the velocity down. It's kind of like a nice little shuffle up now. And let me just check something out here. Oops. Sure it has it, but I can't remember now how to get to it. Global audio routing. Maybe it doesn't have it. I'll have to get back to it, but no, let's see, FX block. Maybe it's in their setup. Yes! Haha! Here we go. This is really cool. This is velocity mod. You actually have a whole bunch of modulation in here, but you usually have to use something else to do it. For example, you have the modulation wheel, breath control, aftertouch, pitch bend. You can apply modulation from using those things, and you get 4 slots per track. I'm sorry, I should say per modulation setting. Each one of these has 4. You get that per track. So it's a ton of modulation. The problem is you can't control those parameters from the sequencer. That's external, with the exception of the velocity mod. Maybe the pitch mod too? Yeah. Anyway, velocity mod. So as I mentioned earlier, I did a retrig on that snare, and basically it's kind of shuffling up. And what's that's doing is it's starting at a low velocity that's increasing. So that velocity increasing can be used as a source for modulation. What I like to think about is, again, back to that natural kind of drummer thing. The idea is when you play a snare and you hit it soft, low velocity, it doesn't have as bright as of a timbre. It's very muted because you're just, when you start smacking it really hard, then you get these bright overtones coming out. So the idea with this is you can use modulation from the velocity to change things, such as, say, a filter. You can have the filter resting pretty closed when it's low velocity, and as you hit it, it starts rising, allowing more of the high frequencies to come out, mimicking what really happens with a natural instrument. So that, to me, is wicked cool. So we're going to mess with that real quick. So let's see, modulation setup. I will say this is where it does get tricky, because when you start engaging these, your velocity for all your standard default hits is at 100. So as soon as you turn something on, it's going to get a lot of velocity modulation, which is kind of a bummer, but I guess that's the way it is. What else are you going to do? But we'll still mess with it a little bit. Oh God, sorry, that was my stomach. All right, filter frequency. We're going to turn it up a little bit, and you can hear. And actually, it's really nice they give you this thing right here, which is telling you each hit, it's telling you the actual amount of velocity modulation. Okay, we're gonna say 22. Can't hear anything right now because the filter is actually completely unused right now. It's completely open. Watch if I bring the cutoff down. Okay, we're gonna need a whole lot more of that modulation. Oops. Velocity mod. There it is, hear it? Oh, that is so cool. What a cool thing to have, man. They really thought of a lot of things to give you just excellent control over the sound. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do, well, we've already got the decay going. No, I'm gonna do the decay too. Why not? We're gonna add a little bit more to it because that's the same kind of concept. When you hit a drum real light, it's gonna decay very quick. If you hit it really hard, it's gonna have more vibration to deal with before it can rest. All right, so let's go to the decay time of the amp envelope. So same idea. The higher the velocity, the more decay we want. Let's hear what we get. I like where that's landing. So what we're going to do now, so it's kind of hard to tell again because I've got the amp decay modulation blasting at 93, but once you get up to 100 and add 93, you get plateaued at 127, so you're not getting a whole lot of variation there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the amp, we're going to bring that decay all the way down. There we go. Right now, I'm just adding some more hits. I took the retrig off. Do a little retrig on this one. I'm just going to fly through this real quick. Okay, now we're going to do one more thing with the sequencer. I love this part. This is one of my favorite things. They added this, I believe, with a rhythm. Was my first machine that they added this on. This is the probability controls. They really knocked these out of the park. Even more so on the new machines where they added some more. Oh God, the new machines have so many great options, but this one still has really good ones. I hope that they upgrade this to what you see in the Digitone 2 and the Digitakt 2. But I don't know. We're waiting. So anyway, you have right here this probability area. You can see it's set at 100%. That means every time that trig is, every time the sequencer comes up to that trig, if it's set for 100%, every single time it's going to play it. If you start dialing it down, let's just say 50%, and let's hear what the snare does now. So it's happening every 50% every time. So basically it's like flipping a coin. Every single time it sees a trig, it flips a coin and it decides if it's heads, it plays, if it's tails, it doesn't. You know, obviously not using a coin, but that's the concept. So that's really nice when you have, we have only one bar, 16 steps going right now, and we want some variation. So we're going to maximize that by using that probability, but I don't want the main snare hits, the real, you know, the ones on the 2 and the 4, the ones that are really driving the song. I don't want those to go away. So I'm going to basically P-lock the condition to 100% on that. This is just the probability aspect in terms of percentage-wise. You have a whole other aspect of, well, actually a couple of different aspects of probability. You have, I'm going to go through it real quick. You have obviously the percentages. If you go left, you can go all the way down to 1% and to 0. Obviously, I'm sorry, 100. 0 would be pointless because you could just turn the trig off. So then that's if you go turn to the left or counterclockwise. If you go clockwise to the right, fill. We'll talk about that here more in a second. Not fill. So when you engage a fill, this trig will not play versus obviously the fill one will play during a fill. When you engage that, of course, it won't play until you engage the fill. So that's nice. If you want a fill to happen at a certain point in the song, you engage that fill button, which I'll show you how to do, and then these trigs fire. You also have pre and not pre, unpre, I don't know. And that looks to the previous trig that has been set with a trig condition. Not just the previous trig flat out, but one that already has a condition. So say I had one here on 3 that was set to go, let's say, well, actually, I'm sorry, I'll go back. So this one's set at 50%. So if it's going to skip this one because this one is not set. This one's just sitting at 100%, which is considered neutral. It's not counted as a trig condition. So this pre, if I have it set to pre, no line over it, if this one triggers at 2, which is set to 50%, so half the time roughly it's going to trigger. If that triggers, then this one will trigger. If I set it to not pre, if this one triggers, this one will not trigger. So therefore, if this one doesn't trigger, this one will. you can see already we're building lots of complexity here. You get more than that. You get the neighbor. This one's a little confusing, honestly, and I don't really use it that much because I tend to forget, but I've just recently made myself learn how to do it. It's actually not that hard. It's just you got to remember. It is doing the same thing as the pre and unpre, but it's actually looking to the track before. So whatever is playing, we're on track 3 or 2 right now, so we'd have to look at track 1. If there was a trig condition on this one, say 5 here, let's say it was set for 50%. If it goes off, and then you have this set to NEI, which is neighbor, then this one will also go off. If you had it set to not go off, it will not go off if the previous track's trig does. And then, of course, vice versa. So if you have that same exact setting, if that previous neighbor track doesn't go off, then this one will play. It's pretty cool. And the idea to me is that you get a good place that I use that a lot lately is for the hi-hats. I mentioned before, I'm trying to treat it like a real drummer. With that said, you know, you have 2 arms, 2 legs, unless maybe you're special. You got 3 or 4, I don't know. Live near Chernobyl. And of course, there's people who have less, you know. But point being that most drummers, I guess, are going to have 4 limbs, meaning they can only do 4 things at the same time. If you are riding the hats, you can't play a snare. Or if you're doing a big snare fill, you can't play the hats at the same time. So if you set this up to whenever you have a, say you wanted periodically to have a snare firing off through these trig conditions, you could say, hey, when that happens, turn off the hi-hat trig at that point. So that way, if the probability engages all these trigs all of a sudden for the snare, you're not going to also have hi-hats playing at the same time. Very complex, but you think about it, it's kind of simple, but what it really does is it makes it more human and more natural. Very cool, very cool. All right, where was I? I was here, got these 100%. Let's hear what we got. So we got 1 bar playing, and you can hear that basically played different every single time. That is pretty cool. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this guy in. And I'm going to do what I just said. Well, we don't have... Yeah. It can still happen this way. Who knows? Nonetheless, it sounds pretty decent for me right now, so I'm good with this. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change this double hit, and I'm going to mess with that percentage-wise. I'm going to say 41%, so less than half of the time. 3 times it hasn't played. 4th time it did. And that's what I like about the variations, too, is because it's not perfect. You know, it's not going to play... I mean, what would that be? 4.1% times out of 10? So, I mean, you know, right there by having a 0.1 involved with the 41, you already know right there it can't possibly play 4 times out of every 10. It's going to play some variation within there. So, anyway, it adds a whole lot of variation and a whole lot of liveliness to the song. I'm going to beef these up too, since we decided to really crank that. Bass sound there. Okay. We're not playing with that one right now. We're going to move over to some of the Syntakt tones, or Syntakt machines that are based on digital synth parameters here. And this is actually, I believe most of these are going to be FM. I know the chord is. I think the tone is. I think the toy is. I don't think the swarm is, but I'm not sure. All right, let's start with bits. All right, I'm gonna actually, well, I've got a keyboard right in front of me. You can already hear some really fun SID kind of chip sounds right there. I think that sounds lovely. Now, what I don't want is all that noise. If I can turn that off. No, I guess the noise gets... Oh, there's the balance. There we go. So you're going to have a little bit of noise in there. Okay. So we just messed around a few of these parameters here, but I already know what I'm going to do. I definitely brought down the noise. That can make some cool percussion sounds, but when I'm hearing a lead in here and I don't really feel like having that much noise is going to make it sound good. But I'll give a little bit, just has a little bit of dirt. I did this right here, which is sample rate reduction. Here, this is all the way open. Oh, sorry. That's all the way open. The noise is still pretty bright when it's open. I'm going to reduce the sample rate. Kind of borderline saw square mix here. Let's go with a little more square. This is the bit rate. Oh, we're just gonna leave that. Little overdrive. Pretty atonal there. I get a little closer in the D-tune. Oops, I'm blocking the view of it. There we go. That. Alright. Just fix that one here. I thought that step was a little funky. 3-6. 3-6. It over to kind of get out of that center mess that's getting way too much low frequency action here. Take some of the low end out. And then we're going to mess with the filter just a little bit. Okay. Definitely muted some of that. We're going to bring in the filter envelope. Just a little bit. Just to kind of brighten up the first part of that sound. Okay. Alright, next we're going to come over and put an LFO on this frequency. Just a little bit, and I'm going to bring the rate of that LFO down. Okay. Maybe a little bit of... Okay, we haven't done anything with the effects yet, so let's add a little delay to this. See if we can get it kind of percolated a little bit. Ooh, that's a long decay. We're going to have to fix that. Feedback, I should say. We're going to bring that down a little bit. Increase the delay time other way to 1/8. That's interesting. I didn't realize on this one the ping pong parameter is set by default, I think. unless I turned that on from previously, but like before I started the stream. I'm going to turn it off because you can basically set the delay to ping pong. So every new delay entry, if you will go left and right, depending on how much you have this wide parameter set. I have that set in the middle, and the X or the toggle is off, so we should just hear it over on the left side. Yep. It should kind of stay where you have the setting for the panorama of the track you are adding the reverb to. I'm going to take a little of the low frequency out of there by increasing the high pass filter. That's going to start low and scoop up and basically start cutting off all those low end frequencies. Low frequencies and delay can be cool sometimes, but honestly, when you got too much going on, it basically turns into mud. So. Elektron's reverb is pretty nice. I must have said this before because I don't feel like the reverb's usually set that high. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. But nonetheless, I like it for now. One other thing I like to do too is you have the reverb sent on the delay. So as it goes through the delay and creates delays, those can then be fed into the reverb too to kind of give it a more shimmery kind of sound. Okay, you can already hear we need to bring down the snare a little bit. And I did not filter out the low frequencies of the snare, but I'm going to do that a little bit too. We got some low frequency melodic stuff going on, so we need to make space for that. I think I'm going to come back here and simplify this bass line here. Down at the bottom. Okay. Let's try a new machine. I don't want to do chord yet. I got too much going on right now for chord. Chord is really nice though. If you ever watch any of my Modal Cycles videos, you will see me use the chord. I feel like pretty good. It's got a lot of variation. You can get squeeze a lot of amazing sounds out of that thing. So it's a very, very capable machine. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Let's go with I think we'll go with tone because I want to make something that kind of complements the thing that's hanging out on the left side right now. There, let's octave up. Let's get a line in first. see what we got here. Let's go ahead and get rid of everything for a minute so we can just hear. Okay. This is a relatively simple, trying to sound like an analog synth in a way, kind of a VA, a virtual analog, if you will. A ratio. Oh. This is FM. Okay, I was wrong. This does not sound like a VA subtractive. This is an FM wackiness here. I recognize that from the modal samples for sure. Cool. So I just messed around with the feedback, obviously sending some frequency back into the sound itself, getting that kind of real dirty sort of overdrive sound. I did add a little overdrive. The modulation is going to be changing the feedback, I believe. Yeah. And then the ratio is how the two FM, well, you have a modulator. I'm not going to go through FM, I did that in a different video, but you basically have a modulator and a carrier. The modulator is affecting the carrier, and this ratio right here is giving you... Even numbers are going to sound a lot more pleasant than something... 0.5 is actually, I mean, it's kind of even if you look at the differences you can get. Get more granular at the top. Ooh, we're getting some... Alright, let's just go back down. There we go. So what I like to do, honestly, with a lot of frequency modulation stuff is I like to get pretty close to the even. You can see right here, here's 1.0. Now if we add just, look at 1.001. Adds just a little bit more texture to it. That's not bad. Let's see what we can do with the filter. Maybe tame a little bit here. That's kind of nice. It does have a lot of bass in there still, so I'm going to roll that off just a little bit. Man, I love having that bandpass. I wish all machines had it, but of course they can't put it all in the analog. Okay. And let's come over and start adding some effects. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, let's mess with at least one LFO. I think we should put that on. Let's hear what it sounds like on the modulation. It's going to sound pretty crazy. Here we get. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Almost has like horns and I don't know, something going on. It's cool. All right. Let's see if we get a little more filter. Yeah. Oh man, my belly is crumbling like crazy. Well, we're getting to that time anyways. Unfortunately, I don't have any viewers, so I don't know how much longer I'm gonna go. Let's see. Let's bounce this over, we'll pan it to the right. Add a little delay. And here the delay is going through the reverb, so we don't even really need to put, I mean, we put a little reverb on there. That delay going into the reverb is giving us a lot of reverb on this sound, so that's pretty good. All right, let's hear what we got. Man, I feel like I gotta redo the sound on this here real quick. It's just not really fitting in there. Okay, yeah, not using that. Let's clear that out. And I just keep it nice and just raw. Here we get the filter on this guy. Okay. Ooh, this is gonna be nice. This is gonna be real nice. Okay. So let's hear what we got with just this. I thought about using the second FLO to do this, but I think it'd actually be a little easier to control by using something else on the sequencer, and that is called a trigless trig. What that means is you can put a trig. Remember, any entry on here is considered a trig. If you just say trig, you're basically just meaning like, boom, that's a trig. It's on there. A trigless trig, it's a weird terminology. Trigless trig, if you hold function, you can see it's yellow. And what that means, it's not going to trigger a sound. It's not going to trigger the gate of the amp envelope. It's not going to basically make sound. You can hear, here, I'm going to save this real quick. You can hear as it goes across the 4, no sound. Oh, here, let me make it real apparent. So no other tracks, just this one. Nothing. There's other tracks here, other trigs, sorry. It's here, nothing. Okay, I'm gonna reload that, bring those all back. So the idea is that it is there and you can program some information into it to affect parameters and other things, but it's not gonna trig the sound. So what I'm gonna do with that, I'm gonna get rid of it. Let's bring everything else back in. Actually, I'm sorry. No, we're gonna take it all out because I really want to hear what this thing's gonna do. Okay. Okay, so we're going to actually affect this one here. I'm not going to use a trigless trig first because it's going to be on this hit. I'm going to turn up the LFO and I'm going to crank this BPM to 32. Let's just hear what happens with this. Where I am going to use a trigless trig is I don't want that to happen too long. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to take, let's see, this is set at 32, it's at 2, and I'm going to make sure now the trigless trig is set to 2. So what's going to happen is it's going to trig the note of that synthesizer. I can hold it down. That's what it's going to sound like instead of. So it's going to do that, but then this guy is going to turn it off halfway as that note is still playing. So it's going to play that wah, 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 and then even out again. Same note. So we want a little bit more on that. So I'm going to copy that, paste it here. Let's see what we got. I'm going to borrow that, come over here. I'm going to do this here, and I'm going to set this one up. So now it's back to resetting the BPM to 2, and I'm going to come here and mess with the BPM of this LFO again. I'm going to crank it to something wacky. Let's see what this sounds like. It's not giving me enough. There we go. I think we need to let that happen longer. Might even just take that out because no, try that. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm gonna slide this over. Here's another thing you can do with these guys. Let's make sure they quantize. Okay, that's probably why. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the quantize all the way off. One thing they don't have on here that they do have the modal cycles, and I wish every Elektron had this, is you can apply the quantization. You can print it. So that way you can quantize something really heavy, print it and now quantize is off, but it's put all of those trigs quantized in a quantized location, and then you can start moving things around. Since it's not there, what I actually need to do, if I want this all to be quantized, I have to go to every trig and make sure it's on there, which can be a pain in the butt. Apparently I played this very well, or maybe I have the, I must have it set up to do that, because there's no way. Oh, there's one. Oh, maybe not. Okay, yeah, I'll have to figure that out. Either I played it perfectly, which I highly doubt, or it has a quantization upon recording set, which it might, and I just forget how to set that up because I actually haven't played this guy in a little while. So anyway, let's hear what it sounds like now. Bring this over. That's what I wanted. So now this Dragos trig, is actually sitting in between the 9 and 10 because you can see I moved the micro timing over. Micro timing allows you to really finesse where exactly that trig hits. It's really nice, actually. Cool, I like this. We can get into some variation with trig conditions and stuff on that, but I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. Let's hear what it sounds like with the rest of it. One thing I'm going to do real quick for this, probably going to call it after this guy. Oh, I got some viewers. Hey, guys. If you want to join, feel free to make any recommendations on the sound, any parameters, change anything like that. Please do so. I'm probably going to call it here in a little bit. I've been going for about an hour and a half, but if you'd like to join in, please do so. Anyway, we are going to probably beef up those hi-hats because I feel like this kind of mangly, kind of wild song, the hi-hats are a little too sparse. So I did mess around earlier with the velocity and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy-paste some of these notes into different slots and then copy-paste over them to get a higher velocity on the 1 E and A's, if that makes sense. So you have 16. If you go through every other one, 1 E and A. So let's do this. Let's copy this guy. This is going to be, make sure I have the right one. Yep, this is a lower velocity. I'm going to put that at 2, 10, 4, 12, 6, 14, and 8. And I'm going to take this one out that has a variation on it. And then now we're going to have basically a stronger hit on 1 and 5. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 1 and put that on the off beats. Okay. I'm going to mess more with the off here, increase the decay. There we go. So my intention wasn't to make a song tonight. It was really just about making some sounds, so the song's a little wonky, but it's something. It's a good start. I feel like I could turn this into something really fun if I spent some time on it. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's got some charm to it. This is definitely a small scratch of the surface of what the Syntakt can do. I actually been challenging myself to try to write more kind of beautiful, softer sounds in the Syntakt. It's capable, but it's very easy to want to just get into that grimy, grungy area because you get a lot of parameters that facilitate that. So one last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to play this a little bit, but I'm going to go through the FX lane, and this is really cool. The digis in general don't have this with the exception of the Syntakt. The Analog 4 and the Analog Rhythm have a dedicated FX sequencer, which you can get some really fun. I mean, imagine you can P-lock, parameter lock, the reverb, the delay, the chorus, all that kind of stuff, and really get some wild stuff going on. This lane mainly to me is more facilitating the filter. So the idea is that if you are, let's make sure we have everything routed to it. We have nothing routed to it, so I'm going to route every single track into it. So now Take that all the way out. Oh, the filter's not, the effects are not in there. Here we go. So now we have a master filter. Okay. We go back one, master drive two. Send this to the reverb. Really? You do get a track on here too, which is pretty nice. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have this filter there, but I wanted to pop it open every once in a while. Let's pop it open where the snare hits. I'm going to take this page down to just one, so we don't have to do this for every page. If we crank this guy up here, get that envelope. Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to get the filter cut off. We'll bring the resonance down so it doesn't really pop in our ear. Listen to this. So that's interesting, is like it bounces back. It opens and it doesn't close is what I meant to say. So what we need to do is do two trigless trigs right here and lock setting. Are they locked? Okay. So we're letting that snare pop through. Let's go ahead and do that for the beginning, too, because I want to... Also get two LFOs here, so you can get really weird, man. Let's see what we got here. Filter frequency. Let's do the filter resonance. Do a trig on it. Random. Actually, let's try. Whoa, it's an envelope depth. Oh my god. Frequency. Yeah, I guess the resonance is kind of. And then we can do even more wackier stuff. So here's a fun thing we're going to do. We're going to turn this into trig condition ones at, say they go off 67% of the time. Do the same for this one. And this is where the special parameters are going to come in. So if I set these to 67% time, the following trigless trigs, they don't necessarily mean they're going to trig when the... Or, I'm sorry, well, trig. They're going to activate when the one before it does, because 67% is individual to the trig. So this one might trig, this one might not. What we're going to do instead is we're going to set the condition to pre. So if this one does hit, 67% of the time it will. If it does, this one will also hit. I really love those trig conditions. It really just changes so much in terms of what you can control and the variation. Now here's a cool thing you can do as well, because I mentioned earlier, if we go into the FX, we hit function FX for the routing, we can take out the sounds we don't want to be affected there. So let's take out those ones. We take out the kick. fun little thing. Yeah, so the Syntakt, it's a very formidable synthesizer. It is a powerhouse for how small it is. It is a warm little bugger with all those little analog machines going on inside. And we've kind of just scratched the surface. I'm going to do more of these videos. I'm going to try to kind of cycle through all my synthesizers. I got a lot of them. So probably won't see this one for a little while, other than maybe I might put up a song with it. So trying to release a song at least once a week, just to kind of get something up there, as well as do this stream once a week, and build upon that. So if you like what you saw, please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and leave a message, which would be nice too. But mainly, I hope next time we do one of these, chime in. Let me know. Tell me you like what I'm doing or you don't. Say, hey man, crank that filter more. You should really, reduce the sample rate on that song. Just stuff like that. Just to be fun to work together. So anyway, have a good night. Thanks for joining me. And I'm going to mess around with this just a little bit. Good night, everybody.